The simulation room filled with red emergency lights as another digital casualty report flashed across the screens. Cadet Junho Park watched his squad's numbers drop from 12 to 7 in less than 30 seconds. The rescue mission had failed completely. "Stop! Everyone stop!" Admiral Velthar's voice boomed through the training hall. The Krithian instructor stood nearly 8 feet tall, his blue skin shimmering under the harsh lights. His forearms crossed over his chest as he stared down at the human cadets. "This is pathetic." Junho felt his heart sink. Around him, the other cadets from various alien species shifted uncomfortably. His friend, Mina Choi, stood beside him, her jaw clenched tight. The simulation had been brutal, designed for soldiers with twice their experience level. Velthar walked slowly toward the human section of the class. His boots echoed on the metal floor. "Humans," he said, drawing out the word like it tasted bad. "Why does the Galactic Council waste resources training your kind?" Nobody answered. Junho kept his eyes forward, his hands clasped behind his back. Standard military posture. Don't react. Don't give them a reason to notice you more. You die too easily. Velthar continued. He stopped directly in front of Junho. Your bones break from falls that wouldn't bruise a Krithian child. Your skin tears. Your organs fail. You are fragile primitives, playing at being soldiers. Some of the alien cadets laughed nervously. A tall Vraxian in the back row chuckled openly. Junho's fingers dug into his palms behind his back, but his face remained calm. Velthar tapped his datapad, pulling up recent casualty reports. The holographic display showed numbers and locations. Proxima Station. 3 months ago. 3,000 humans dead in one attack. 3,000. He looked around the room. Do you know how many Krithian soldiers died in our last major engagement? 47. Over a campaign that lasted 6 months. 47. Mina's breathing grew sharper beside Junho. He could feel her anger radiating outward. Don't react, he thought. Just let it pass. Your species loses people like water through a broken seal, Velthar said. He leaned closer to Junho, his alien eyes studying the young cadet's face. How many more will die before humanity learns its place in this galaxy? How many more funerals before you understand that you don't belong on the front lines? The room fell silent. Everyone waited. Junho met the Admiral's eyes without flinching. 6,131, sir, Junho said quietly. Velthar blinked. His head tilted slightly to one side. What? 6,131. Junho repeated, his voice steady. That's the current number. The Admiral's expression shifted from anger to confusion. What number? What are you talking about, Cadet? You asked, how many more will die, sir? The answer is 6,131. That's how many human soldiers have died in combat since we joined the Galactic Council. Number 7. Number 7. Velthar stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. A harsh, barking sound. You memorized a random statistic to sound impressive? How very human, dramatic, and pointless. He waved a dismissive hand. Class dismissed. Perhaps tomorrow you'll actually manage to complete a basic rescue without dying. The cadets filed out quickly, eager to escape the Admiral's attention. Junho walked toward the exit with measured steps. Not hurrying. Not slowing. Mina caught up to him in the corridor outside. Junho. What was that about? She asked, keeping her voice low. 6,000 and whatever? Where did that number come from? He didn't answer. His eyes had that distant look she'd seen before, the one that meant he was somewhere else in his mind. They walked through the academy's main corridor, past classrooms and training facilities. Other cadets moved around them, various species heading to their next classes or to the cafeteria. Junho turned down a side path that led to the memorial garden. It was a quiet space, rarely visited during the day. Mina followed him, but stopped at the entrance. She watched as he walked to the far wall, where names were carved into black stone. Thousands of names. All human names. He placed his hand flat against the stone. His lips moved silently, but she was too far away to hear what he said. After a moment, he closed his eyes and just stood there, palm against the memorial wall. Mina turned and left him alone. Some things were too private to intrude on. Back in his office, Admiral Velthar sat at his desk. He tried to focus on tomorrow's lesson plans but kept returning to the image of that human cadet's face. The boy hadn't shown fear or anger. He'd shown something else. Something that made Velthar uncomfortable in a way he couldn't quite name. 6,131. The specificity bothered him. It wasn't a round number someone would guess. It was exact. Precise. Like it meant something. Velthar pulled up his computer interface and typed in a search query. Human military casualties. Galactic Council service records. Combat deaths. The number appeared on his screen. 6,131 confirmed human combat fatalities since joining the Council military forces 10 years ago. The Admiral sat back in his chair. So, the boy hadn't made it up. He'd actually known the exact number. But why would a cadet memorize something like that? What purpose did it serve? He thought about his own species' casualties. Thousands had died over the years. Tens of thousands. He couldn't name them. Couldn't recall specific numbers. They were statistics and reports, numbers that justified budgets and strategies. But that look in the human boy's eyes, that wasn't someone reciting a statistic. Velthar closed the search window and tried to return to his work. But the number stayed in his mind, along with the image of a young human standing perfectly still. His knuckles, white with tension, speaking those digits like they were carved into his bones. 6,131. The following morning, Admiral Velthar found himself searching through human military records before breakfast. This annoyed him. He had more important things to do than investigate one cadet's strange behavior. Yet his fingers kept typing, pulling up more information. The number appeared everywhere. 6,131 deaths across 47 different battles, skirmishes, and incidents over 10 years. Ship explosions, failed colony defenses, boarding actions gone wrong, ambushes in contested space. Each incident had detailed reports listing names, circumstances, and outcomes. Velthar leaned back and rubbed his eyes with two of his hands. Most species in the Council lost far more soldiers. The Crithians, alone, had lost over 40,000 inches the same time period. The humans were actually performing better than expected for such a fragile species. So, why did that number bother him so much? He pressed the communication button on his desk. Summon Cadet Junho Park to my office immediately. 20 minutes later, Junho stood at attention in front of the Admiral's desk. His uniform was perfect. His posture was correct. His face showed nothing. Cadet Park, Velthar began. Yesterday you stated a very specific number. I've confirmed it matches official records exactly. I want to know why you memorized it. It's required, sir, Junho replied simply. Required? Velthar's upper arms crossed, while his lower ones rested on the desk. Required? By whom? Velthar's. Required? By whom? Human military protocol, sir. Every officer must complete the Remembrance Protocol as part of their training. Velthar's eyes narrowed. Explain this protocol. Every human combat death is recorded with full details. Name, rank, age, location, and circumstances. All human officers are required to memorize this information for every casualty during their service period. The Admiral stared at him. You're telling me you've memorized 6,000 names? 6,131, sir. Yes, that's impossible. Nobody can remember that much detail. Junho's expression didn't change. Would you like me to demonstrate, sir? Velthar gestured impatiently with one hand. Fine. Prove it. Give me 10 names. With details. Junho's voice became formal, like he was reading from a document. Private Somin Lee, age 19, Proxima Station, Section 7, died from explosive decompression during the initial breach. Sergeant Quan Nam, age 32. Frontier Post Delta, Hangar Bay, killed by enemy fire while evacuating wounded. Ensign Yuri Seo, age 24, Transport Ship Horizon, Engine Room, died from radiation exposure after reactor damage. Lieutenant Jin Woo Han, age 29. Colony Defense Fleet. Ship designation, Defender, killed when bridge was destroyed by direct hit. Private Hyun Ko, age 20, Patrol Vessel Swift, Medical Bay, died from injuries sustained during boarding action. Corporal Sang-hoon Oh, age 27, Mining Station Epsilon, Docking Port. Stop. Velthar held up a hand. That's enough. Junho fell silent immediately. The Admiral pulled up his records interface and began checking. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Thex, had entered the office during the recitation. The other Krithian officer moved to look at the screen over Velthar's shoulder. He's correct, sir, Thex said quietly. Every detail matches our records exactly. Names, ages, locations, all of it. Velthar waved Junho to continue. More. Another 10. Junho continued without hesitation, his voice never wavering. Names poured out with accompanying details, each one specific and complete. Thex kept checking, his expression growing more serious with each confirmation. After the 20th name, Velthar told him to stop again. This is an impressive memory exercise, the Admiral said, though his voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. But it's just that. A trick. It doesn't change anything about humanity's weakness in combat. It's not a trick, sir, Junho said quietly. It's respect. Respect? Velthar snorted. For what purpose? Knowing their names doesn't bring them back. It doesn't make your species stronger. It's sentimental waste. Junho's jaw tightened slightly. It was the first real emotion Velthar had seen from him. We remember them because we're not like you. Sir, every single one of those deaths mattered. They were people with families, with friends, with futures. They died so that others could learn from their sacrifice. The least we can do is remember their names, their statistics. Velthar countered. Necessary losses in military operations. This is war. Cadet. People die. Dwelling on individual deaths is inefficient. With respect, sir, that's why you keep making the same mistakes, Junho said. His voice remained respectful, but there was steel underneath. Each of those 6,131 deaths taught us something. We studied what went wrong. We changed our tactics. We learned. Private Lee died because we didn't reinforce Section 7 properly. Now we do. Sergeant Nam died because evacuation protocols were too slow. Now, they're faster. Every death, every name, represents a lesson paid for in blood. We don't forget them, because we can't afford to. The room fell silent. Thex looked uncomfortable. Velthar's 4 hands clenched slowly into fists. Before the Admiral could respond, his communication console beeped urgently. He jabbed the button with more force than necessary. What? Sir, priority message from Fleet Command, the voice said. Krithian Border Station. Theta has gone dark. No response to communications for 6 hours. You're being assigned to lead a reconnaissance mission. Velthar's posture straightened immediately. Understood. I'll assemble a task force immediately. He cut the connection and looked at Junho. Dismissed. Cadet. Return to your duties. Junho saluted and left. Thex remained behind. Sir. About what the human said. It doesn't matter. Velthar interrupted. Memorizing names doesn't win battles. Strength and tactics win battles. Whatever comfort humans get from their memorial rituals, it won't change the fact that they're still the weakest species in the Council military. But even as he said it, Velthar couldn't quite shake the image of Junho's face. That quiet certainty. That steel underneath the calm exterior. 6,131 lessons, the boy had said, each one paid for in blood. Velthar shook his head and began pulling up mission files. He had a real crisis to deal with now. A missing border station meant potential hostile action, possibly in significant force. This was actual warfare, not philosophy debates with cadets who memorized death statistics. Still, as he worked, a small part of his mind kept circling back to those names. All those specific details. All those individual people who'd become numbers in his reports. He pushed the thought away and focused on preparing his mission brief. The transport ship hummed through space toward Border Station Theta. Admiral Velthar stood on the bridge reviewing tactical displays while his mixed-species task force prepared for deployment. 80 Crithian elite soldiers formed the primary assault teams. 3 human squads had been included as part of their field training requirements. Junho sat in the deployment bay with his squad, checking equipment. Mina secured her rifle beside him, while Ensign Hyun Bae ran final diagnostics on their combat suits. Dr. Jiwon Lim reviewed medical supplies, her experienced hands moving with practiced efficiency. This feels wrong, Mina muttered, keeping her voice low. A whole Crithian station goes silent, and they bring trainees? They need the numbers, Junho replied quietly. And it's probably nothing serious. Equipment failure or solar interference. But his hands checked his weapon 3 times, which Mina knew meant he didn't believe his own words. The station appeared on their view screens as they approached. It hung in space, lights still functioning but no signs of movement. Scans showed structural damage to the outer hull, but nothing catastrophic. No life signs registered. Velthar's voice came through their suit communicators. All teams prepare for boarding. Primary force will secure the command center and main corridors. Human squads will sweep secondary sections. This is a search and rescue operation. Stay alert. The boarding craft attached to multiple airlocks. Junho's squad entered through a maintenance port on the station's lower level. The corridors inside were dark, except for emergency lighting. Red strips along the floor cast everything in a bloody glow. Spread out, Junho whispered. They moved through empty hallways. The station showed signs of combat. Blast marks scorched the walls. Equipment lay scattered across the floor. But no bodies. No blood. Nothing that explained where 200 Crithian soldiers had gone. Through the command channel, they heard Velthar's teams reporting similar findings in the primary sections. Damage, but no casualties. No enemies. Just an empty station that had clearly seen violence. Then Hyun's scanner beeped. Motion detected. Multiple contacts. Upper levels. Moving fast. Velthar's voice crackled through. All teams, we have hostile contacts. Skraeth forces detected throughout the station. This was a trap. Primary team engaging now. Skraeth. The word sent ice through Junho's chest. The Skraeth were nightmare creatures. Brutal and savage. They took no prisoners and left no survivors. If they'd taken this station, the Crithian defenders were already dead. Explosions echoed through the station's structure. The sounds of battle erupted from the upper levels where Velthar's elite teams had gone. Through the command channel came shouts, weapons, fire, and screams. Primary team taking heavy casualties. Velthar's voice came through, strained now. Ambush in the command center. We're pinned down. All secondary teams, withdraw to extraction points. Junho's squad reached their designated area, a cargo bay on the lower level. They'd secured it quickly, finding it empty. Mina moved to the door. We should fall back. Admiral's orders. Junho pulled up the tactical display on his arm console. The Crithian elite teams were trapped in 3 locations. As he watched, casualty markers appeared. 4 down, 7 down, 12 down. Squad, hold position, he said quietly. Junho, the Admiral ordered withdrawal. He wasn't listening. His fingers moved across the console, pulling up station schematics and overlay them with enemy positions. His lips moved silently, counting. 47 Crithian soldiers confirmed dead, he said softly. More wounded. They're being slaughtered up there. Dr. Lim looked at him. There's nothing we can do. We're 12 people. They have 80 elite soldiers. And they're losing. Junho's fingers kept moving on the console. He pulled up names from the casualty list. Names of Crithian cadets he'd trained with at the academy. Warriors who'd sneered at humans in the hallways but who'd also helped him once when he'd fallen behind in zero-gravity training. He started speaking. Sub-Commander Thex, age 47, Command Center, killed by plasma fire during initial ambush. Private Corvan, age 23, Corridor Junction 9, fell defending wounded squadmate. Sergeant, what are you doing? Mina stared at him. The Remembrance Protocol, Junho said. His voice was quiet, but his eyes were hard. They're not just numbers. They're people who deserve to be remembered. He looked up at his squad. The Admiral's tactics aren't working. The Scraith are using the station's layout against them, ambushing from multiple angles. But the Scraith fight like animals, all aggression and no patience. We can use that. We're supposed to withdraw, Hyun said nervously. We are withdrawing, Junho replied. We're withdrawing toward the command center to get our people out. The long way, through maintenance tunnels, where the Scraith won't expect us. Mina studied his face for a long moment. Then she checked her rifle and nodded. All right. We do this the human way. The squad moved through the station's service passages, areas too small for the large Scraith warriors to navigate easily. Junho directed them using the schematics, finding paths that let them avoid the main battle while moving closer to the trapped Crithian positions. They set traps as they went. Explosive charges placed in doorways, cables strung across corridors at neck height for the tall Scraith, oxygen vents rigged to vent into sealed rooms. Human tactics, learned from 6,131 mistakes. When they encountered a Scraith patrol, they didn't engage directly. Instead, Hyun triggered an alarm 2 corridors away, drawing the enemies off. Mina picked off stragglers from concealed positions. They moved like ghosts through the station, never where the enemy expected. They reached a position above the command center where Velthar's team was pinned. Junho could see the tactical situation through a maintenance grate. 30 Crithian soldiers trapped in a room, surrounded by at least 60 Scraith. The enemy kept them suppressed with constant fire while moving into position for a final assault. We can't fight 60 enemies, Dr. Lim said practically. We don't have to, Junho replied. We just have to make them think we're somewhere else. He outlined the plan quickly. It was risky and required perfect timing, but it used the Scraith's aggressive nature against them, drawing them into prepared kill zones while opening an escape route for the Crithians. If this works, we'll save most of them, Mina said. If it doesn't, then we'll be number 6,144 through 6,155. Junho finished. But they'll remember us. Now let's move. The squad split up, each member moving to their assigned position. Junho watched the chronometer on his display, counting down to the moment when everything would happen at once. He thought about all the names he'd memorized. All the soldiers who'd died so that he could stand here, knowing what mistakes to avoid. This was what the Remembrance Protocol meant, not just honoring the dead, but learning from them, making sure their deaths meant something. The chronometer hit 0, and 12 humans went to war. The first explosion came from the eastern corridor, exactly as planned. The Scraith warriors spun toward the sound, their weapons raised. Before they could react, Mina's rifle cracked from a concealed position, dropping 3 of them. The rest charged toward her firing position, roaring their battle cries. They ran straight into the cables Junho had strung across the corridor. The leading Scraith caught the wire at throat level and went down hard. The ones behind stumbled over them, and that's when Hyun triggered the explosive charges. The blast wasn't large enough to kill many of them, but it filled the corridor with smoke and debris. The Scraith formation broke apart, some pushing forward, others falling back. They were confused, angry, no longer working as a coordinated unit. Junho dropped through a ceiling vent into the command center, where Velthar's team was pinned. The Crithian soldiers spun their weapons toward him before recognizing the human uniform. Cadet Park? Velthar was bleeding from multiple wounds, his blue skin darker, where blood had dried. "What are you doing here?" "I ordered withdrawal." "Saving your life, sir," Junho replied calmly. He moved to the wounded soldiers, directing Dr. Lim as she followed him down. "We have maybe 2 minutes before the Scraith regroup. Can your people move?" Velthar struggled to his feet, one arm hanging useless at his side. "We have 15 soldiers too wounded to walk. We can't leave them." "We're not leaving anyone," Junho said. He spoke into his communicator. "Hyun, bring it in." A maintenance loader crashed through the wall, Hyun at the controls. The young pilot had rigged the industrial machine with armor plating and mounted 2 salvaged weapons on its arms. It wasn't elegant, but it would work. "Load the wounded into the cargo bed," Junho ordered. The Crithian soldiers moved quickly, respect replacing their earlier skepticism. They'd seen what this small human squad had accomplished in minutes. More explosions echoed through the station. Mina was leading the Scraith on a chase through the prepared traps, buying them time. But it wouldn't last long. They moved as a group toward the extraction point, the loader carrying wounded, while the remaining soldiers formed a protective perimeter. Junho directed them through maintenance tunnels and service passages, always avoiding the main corridors where the Scraith would expect them. They were halfway to the docking bay when the Scraith finally cornered them. A large group blocked their path forward, while another approached from behind. Junho's carefully planned route had run out. "We fight through," Velthar said, raising his weapon despite his wounds. "No," Junho countered. He was studying the walls, the ceiling, the floor. "We go up." "Up?" Velthar looked confused. "The docking bay is on this level. So are the Scraith," Junho replied. He pointed to an access ladder leading to the upper engineering level. "We take the environmental systems above the main corridors. They won't fit up there. Thanks for watching." Thanks for watching. It was a desperate plan. The engineering crawl spaces were barely large enough for humans, let alone Crithians. But the wounded were already loaded on Hyun's loader, which could lift them up. The rest would have to squeeze through tight spaces, while the Scraith tried to find ways to follow. They made it work through sheer determination. Crithian soldiers who'd mocked human weakness now crawled through passages designed for maintenance drones, dragging their wounded companions behind them. Junho and his squad covered the access points, keeping the Scraith from climbing up after them, but the enemy was learning. They couldn't follow the Crithians into the tight spaces, so they started destroying the passages themselves, trying to collapse the crawlways and trap everyone inside. "Faster!" Junho shouted as ceiling panels buckled from weapon fire below. Metal groaned and bent. Dust and debris rained down. They were 20 meters from the docking bay access point when the Scraith brought down a support beam. The passage ahead collapsed completely, cutting them off from escape. Hyun stared at the blocked tunnel. "We're trapped." Junho looked around frantically. His mind raced through the station schematics he'd memorized. There had to be another way. There was always another way. Then he saw it. An emergency pressure door that led directly into the docking bay. But opening it from this side would trigger an alarm and seal all other exits. Anyone still on the wrong side would be stuck. "Everyone through the maintenance hatch into Corridor 12, Junho ordered. Now, the soldiers moved quickly. Velthar, limping badly, went last among the Crithians. Junho's squad helped push the wounded through on Hyun's loader. "What about you?" Mina asked Junho. Someone has to trigger the pressure door from this side, he said. Once it opens, you'll have 30 seconds before the Scraith break through. Get everyone to the ship. Junho. No. That's an order, Cadet Choi. His voice was firm. Get them out. Mina's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded and moved toward the hatch. The last of the Crithian soldiers was almost through. Wait. Hyun stopped at the hatch opening. He looked at Junho, then at the pressure door controls, then back at his squad leader. I can trigger it from the loader. Remote access to station systems. Junho shook his head. The signal might not work through the door. Someone needs to be here to make sure. Right, then I'll make sure, Hyun said quietly. He smiled, and it was the first time Junho had seen him look truly calm. You know all those names. 6,000, whatever. You need to be alive to remember them. I'm just a pilot who's scared of everything. He climbed back into the loader. Besides, this thing can take a few hits. I'll be right behind you. Hyun. Go, sir. That's an order from a lowly ensign to his squad leader. Hyun's hands moved over the loader's controls. Get everyone out. I'll seal the door and catch up. There was no time to argue. The Scraith were cutting through the walls now. Junho could hear their weapons getting closer. He moved to the hatch. Looked back one more time. At Hyun, sitting in the loader, facing the approaching enemy alone. Ensign Hyun Bae, Junho said formally. Age 23. I'll remember. I know you will, Hyun replied. Now go. Junho dropped through the hatch. The others pulled him through into Corridor 12. They ran for the docking bay as behind them, they heard the pressure door slam shut. Then came weapons fire. Then an explosion. Then silence. They made it to the ship. The wounded were loaded first, then the remaining soldiers. The pilot was already firing up engines. Junho was the last one to board, standing at the ramp, staring back at the station. We have to go, Mina said softly beside him. I know. The ramp closed. The ship pulled away from the station. Through the viewports, they could see the docking bay door, where Hyun had sealed it. No movement. No signals. Junho stood at attention in the cargo bay while the other soldiers caught their breath around him. Velthar watched as the young human's face set into hard lines. Ensign Hyun Bae, Junho began, his voice carrying through the quiet ship. Age 23. Orbital Defense Station. Sigma 7. Hostile action. Died securing an escape route and saving 42 soldiers of mixed species. Graduated from Academy Class 7 with honors in piloting. Survived by parents Min Seok and Eunji Bae of Busan Colony. Favorite food was his mother's kimchi stew. Afraid of heights but became a pilot anyway. Played guitar poorly but with enthusiasm. Ass, Emin B, Junho's voice cracked slightly but he continued. Never gave up on anyone. Saved my life twice during training. Made everyone laugh even when things were terrible. Died a hero. Endra. The cargo bay was completely silent, except for Junho's voice. Even the wounded Crithians had stopped moving to listen. Then Junho continued with the Crithian soldiers they'd lost during the retreat. 3 names, 3 lives. He recited their details from memory. Information he'd gathered during the battle itself while carrying their wounded and fighting beside them. When he finished, he remained at attention, tears running down his face but his posture perfect. Velthar stepped forward slowly. The Admiral looked at this young human who'd saved his life and the lives of most of his command. This boy, who remembered every death like it was carved into his soul. 6,180, Junho said quietly. I'll remember them all. The inquiry room at the Galactic Naval Academy was packed with observers. Representatives from multiple council species sat in the gallery, while 3 magistrates reviewed the official reports. At the center table, Admiral Velthar sat with his arm in a medical brace, facing the inquiry board. Beside him, Junho stood at attention in his dress uniform. The charges were serious. Disobeying direct orders during combat operations, unauthorized rescue attempt, reckless endangerment of personnel. Any one of them could end Junho's military career before it truly began. Magistrate Orin, a neutral third-party species with silver skin and multiple eyes, reviewed the datapad before her. Cadet Park, you were given explicit orders to withdraw to extraction points. Instead, you led your squad deeper into hostile territory. Explain your reasoning. Junho's voice was steady. The tactical situation required immediate action. Admiral Velthar's primary force was sustaining heavy casualties and would have been completely lost within minutes. I judged that my squad's unique capabilities could alter the outcome. Unique capabilities? Orin's eyes focused on him. You were 12 trainees against superior numbers of battle-hardened Scraith warriors. Yes, Magistrate. But we had advantages the enemy didn't account for. One of the other magistrates, a large Crithian named Borak, leaned forward. What advantages could humans possibly have? You're smaller, weaker, more fragile than any warrior species in this room. Before Junho could answer, Velthar stood up. His movement was painful, visible in how he held himself. But his voice was strong. Permission to speak, magistrates. Orin nodded. Proceed, Admiral. Velthar turned to face the gallery. I came to this inquiry prepared to support disciplinary action against Cadet Park. His actions were technically insubordinate, but I cannot, in good conscience, punish someone who saved my life and the lives of 67 Crithian soldiers. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Borak frowned. Admiral, regulations exist for a reason. Orders must be followed. They must, Velthar agreed. But I gave the wrong orders. My tactical doctrine was aggressive, focused on overwhelming force and direct assault. It's what we Crithians do. It's what makes us strong. He paused. It was also getting everyone killed. The room fell silent. Velthar continued, his voice carrying a weight that came from hard experience. For years, I believed humans were weak. They die easily. Their bodies break. They can't match our strength or the durability of other species. I mocked them for it. He looked at Junho. I was wrong. He activated a holographic display showing casualty statistics. Humans don't fight despite their weakness. They fight because of it. Every human knows exactly how fragile life is. They know what death costs. So, they've developed something we stronger species have forgotten. The display changed to show the Remembrance Protocol documentation. Names. Thousands of names. Each with full details. Every human military officer memorizes every combat death in their service. Not just numbers. Names, ages, circumstances, families. Velthar's voice grew quieter. I asked Cadet Park to demonstrate this. He gave me 20 names with perfect accuracy. He could have given me all 6,131. Gasps came from the gallery. Even the magistrates looked shocked. This isn't just memory, Velthar said. It's learning. Every one of those deaths taught humanity a lesson. They study what went wrong. They adapt their tactics. They never make the same mistake twice if they can help it. He gestured to the tactical recordings from the station. Cadet Park used techniques learned from centuries of human soldiers dying and teaching their species how to survive. Stealth over strength. Patience over aggression. Preparation over brute force. He met Borak's eyes. We Crithians lose tens of thousands in battle and call it acceptable. We're strong enough to absorb those losses. But humans aren't. So they honor every single death by making sure it means something, by learning from it, by never forgetting. Velthar turned back to the magistrates. During the evacuation, we lost 3 more soldiers. I didn't know their names. They were just casualties in my report. But Cadet Park. He paused, struggling with emotion. Cadet Park recited their names their ages, their families, everything about them. He'd learned it all during the battle itself, while fighting to save them. Because to humans, every life matters enough to remember. Admiral Taewan Han stood from where he'd been sitting in the gallery. The elderly human officer walked to the front, his gray hair and lined face showing decades of service. The magistrates recognized him and nodded permission to speak. "I'm Admiral Han, Senior Human Liaison to the Council Military," he began. "I want to explain why we do this. Why we carry these names like weights on our souls." He activated his own display, showing human casualty reports over the decades. "We're not the strongest. We're not the fastest. We don't have natural armor or multiple hearts or regenerative abilities. What we have is the knowledge that every single one of us is irreplaceable. Every death is a tragedy, not a statistic." His voice grew firm. "We study our dead because we cannot afford to waste lives. Every mistake costs us someone who mattered. So we learn. We adapt. We remember. That's why human casualty rates have dropped 70% over 10 years, while most species rates stayed the same. We cannot forget because forgetting means repeating the same losses." Han looked at Junho with obvious pride. This young man saved 67 lives, using tactics learned from 6,131 deaths. He carried all those names with him into battle, and they showed him how to win. Magistrate Orin studied both admirals carefully. "The charges still stand. Orders were disobeyed." "Then charge me as well," Velthar said. "My orders were flawed. Any soldier should question orders that will result in needless death. Cadet Park showed better tactical judgment than I did. And better command presence," Han added. "He led a mixed species rescue under impossible conditions and brought nearly everyone home. That's not the action of an insubordinate cadet. That's the action of a future leader." The three magistrates conferred quietly among themselves. Finally, Orin spoke. "All charges against Cadet Junho Park are dismissed." His actions, while technically against orders, demonstrated exceptional tactical ability and saved numerous lives. He is commended for valor in combat. Relief swept through the gallery, but Junho's expression didn't change. Orin continued. "Furthermore, this inquiry recommends that the Remembrance Protocol be studied by all Council species for potential implementation in their own forces." Borak looked uncomfortable but nodded agreement. "We've been arrogant. Strength isn't just physical. The humans have shown us a different kind of power." That evening, a memorial service was held in the Academy Garden. For the first time, multiple species attended together. Humans, Crithians, and others stood side by side as names were read aloud. Junho stood at the memorial wall where new names had been carved. He touched the stone where Hune's name now appeared, along with the 3 Crithian soldiers who'd fallen during the retreat. Admiral Velthar approached quietly. The Crithian officer held a datapad carefully in his lower hands. "Cadet Park," he said formally. Junho turned to face him. Velthar's voice was unsteady. "Sub-Commander Thex, age 47. He was my second in command. More than that, he was my friend. He died in the first ambush at the station, saving my life by pushing me out of the blast radius." The Admiral's eyes showed pain. "I wrote him off as an acceptable casualty. I moved on, but he deserves to be remembered." Junho took out his own datapad and began recording the information. "Tell me about him. Everything you remember." Velthar spoke for 10 minutes, sharing memories of Thex, his family, his interests. The time he'd pulled Velthar from a crashed transport years ago. How he made terrible jokes during tense situations. All the details that made him a person, not just a casualty statistic. When he finished, Junho had recorded it all. "Sub-Commander Thex. I'll remember him. 6,180, Velthar said quietly. "Yes, sir." They stood together in silence, looking at the memorial wall. Other soldiers moved past them. Some human, some alien. All there to pay respects to the fallen. I'm implementing the remembrance protocol for my command, Velthar said. It won't be easy. We have decades of casualties to document. But it's time we learned what those deaths can teach us. Junho looked at the Krithian admiral with respect. They'll teach you to win, sir. Not just battles, but the war. Because you'll never waste a life again. Every soldier will matter. Every death will mean something. And perhaps, Velthar added, we can learn to prevent number 6,181. Junho managed a small smile. That's the goal, sir. That's always been the goal. They stood at attention together. A human cadet and a Krithian admiral, united in honoring the fallen. Above them, stars shone in the darkening sky. Ships of all species moved through space, patrolling together, protecting together. And in academies across council space, soldiers of every species began to learn a new protocol. One that treated every life as precious. One that honored every death by learning from it. One that remembered, because in the end, strength wasn't about how much damage you could take, it was about making sure that every loss, every sacrifice, every name carved in stone meant something. It was about turning tragedy into wisdom, and death into lessons that kept others alive. It was about remembering that behind every number was a person who deserved to be honored, to be learned from, and to be never forgotten. 6,180 names, and countless more who would live, because those names were remembered.